What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters. Welcome to Demented Metal. It's time for another edition of Thrash Metal A through Z. That's right. It's time for another edition of Thrash Metal A through Z, and this edition of Thrash Metal A through Z is going to be the letter D. Band starting with the letter D. And once again, this is not an all-inclusive list of bands. I'm going to be leaving out some. I actually wrote some down. Death, Destroyer, DRI, Destruction. These are some bands that I think are fairly well known that, you know, I'm just not going to include them. So I'm just going to include some other bands, mostly underground bands, but some more well-known bands. Some of my favorites is what I'm going to include. So we're going to go ahead and start right off with what's playing in the background right now. This is from 1991. This is Depressive Age. And this is Lying in Wait on the Century Media label. As you can see, it starts off kind of a little odd, but gets more technical, more thrashy as it goes through. Very enjoyable CD, and I think this is the only thing they ever put out. So, Depressive Age, Lying in Wait, Century Media. I'm sorry, it's not Century Media, it's CMC International. There you go. Good stuff. All right, next up we have, let's see here, what do we got? This is, let's see, what's next? Sorry. Okay, Decision D from Holland. And I have 3 of their albums. I think they only released 3 albums. This is their first album. It's got a sticker still on it, Holland, brutal import. These guys were really, really raw. And vocals, the vocals are a little odd. Vocals name was Edwin. Did I write it down? Did I write it down? Probably didn't. Edwin Eugenio. Eugenio, I think that's how you say it. And he definitely has a unique style. And I can see a lot of people why they wouldn't like him. To be honest, when I first heard this album, I didn't like his vocals. It took me a few listens, got the second album, and started liking him a little more. So I started liking this one. Then I got the third album, and this third album is called The Last Prostitute. I believe it's from 1995 or so. Let's see here. We got a year on here somewhere. Should look this stuff up before I do a video, right? It doesn't matter. Anyhow, from the mid-90s, this is The Last Prostitute by Decision D. Decision D or Decision Day was their original name, Decision D. And their style here, they slowed it down a little bit. Here it was almost to the point of, you know, early death metal, like early Death. Very technical, very raw. On this one they slowed it down a little bit here and there, added a slight bit more groove, and frankly got a little more memorable. Of the 3, I like this one the best, even though it has the least thrash metal looking cover. That was kind of a cool cover. I always thought it was kind of neat. The I don't know, I guess those are angels or demons or something like that all over the cover. Anyhow, Decision D from Holland. Unique band. And I'm going to go ahead and throw a clip of these guys in. Not sure which song, I'll figure it out afterwards. Maybe I'll throw in the first song from Last Prostitute. I'll throw in the title cut from the Last Prostitute. So there you go. That was the last Prostitute from Decision D from Holland. Next up, this is Dover Trench. And this is a band I wasn't really, you know, I don't know a whole lot about. I think it's the only thing they ever released. I don't think they ever released anything else but a bunch of like demos and stuff like that. This album, I believe, was from 1991. Yep, 1991 on Speedcore USA label. I don't even know if that's a real label or if it's an independent release. This is really technical stuff. Especially, there's 12 songs in here, but the first song, Acid Test, and the last song, The Immortal Few, awesome. The bookend songs at the beginning and end are the ones I like the best. These guys have a lot of speed, but they mix up tempos, so it's not boring. You know, it doesn't become the same old, excuse me, the same old thrash metal polka thing. You know, where it's just nothing but double bass, nothing but downbeats. You know, the tempos go up and down. Like I said, very techy. I wouldn't say death metal at all, just pure thrash metal. And again, I'm going to throw a quick clip of this one. I think I'm going to go ahead and throw in a little bit of the last song on here, The Immortal Feud. So there you go, that's The Immortal Few from Dover Trench, and I remember where this band is from. And of course, they didn't write it down. I'm pretty sure they're from Arizona. I'm not sure if it was Phoenix, Arizona or not. But anyhow, Dover Trench from Arizona. Next band is from the UK, and they released 2 albums. I'm only going to be showing their first album. This is Defiance, Perpetual Defiance. Detritus, Perpetual Defiance. Yeah, I got that right. Great cover art by Rodney Matthews, who has just done a ton of covers, you know, a ton of bands. Nazareth, Asia, who else? Diamond Head, among many, many others. And I have this one on vinyl and CD. I like it that much. It's just a fantastic album. I believe this band was headed up by a guy named Mark Broomhead. Yeah, Mark Broomhead, vocals and bass. Andy Bright on drums, Earl Morris on guitar, and Andy Neal on guitar. And these guys were friends and have a very similar sound to another UK band called Seventh Angel. And the second album that they released after this one, which is called If But For One, a little bit different than this one. This one's more straightforward thrash. That one had a little more of a slower edge to it, kind of like Seventh Angel did with their second album. But this here, just pure thrash. I'm gonna have. Should I play a clip of this one? Why not? So there you go, Detritus, Perpetual Defiance, song called Subliminal Division. Alright, next up, this is a band with just a great name for a thrash metal band. I mean, how much better can you get than Dead and Bloated? I always thought it was just the most bizarre freaking name I've ever heard of. And this album from 1991, technical, experimental, heavy. Kind of reminds me a bit of Death. You know, later Death, where they got more technical and less guttural. I wouldn't say it's, you know, death metal at all, but it kind of pushes that line where it's almost there. I wonder if I can get away with playing a clip of this one. I think I will play a clip of this one. Here's something I don't know what song. I'll pick a song out. This is Dead and Bloated. Okay, so there you go. That's Dead and Bloated, and like I said, very technical, almost experimental, kind of like Voivod at times, you know. Voivod mixed with death. There you go. That's how I would describe Dead and Bloated. So 1991, Dead and Bloated. This next band, I'm a little on the line on. It's funny, I kept a sticker on here because I found this record the CD way back in the day in a delete bin for $1.98. This is Dead On. Now this band was more known for being on Shocker soundtrack. They had one track on that Shocker soundtrack, the Wes Craven film, and that soundtrack featured a ton of big name artists, and then of course Dead On, who were not very well known. They were a New York-based thrash metal band. These guys were more mid-tempo pace, though. You know, never the full throttle, full speed thrash metal gallop. You know, they were more on the lines of, say, like Metal Church, or I'm trying to think of who else might sound a little bit like them. Maybe Malaya Rage. Maybe that's probably good. Malaya Rage. But yeah, you know, the thing is, I thought the song on the Shocker soundtrack, and did I write it down? I can't remember what song was on there. It doesn't matter. But anyhow, I remember that song on the Shocker soundtrack, and I really liked it. And that's what turned me on to these guys. So then, of course, I went looking for the album, and I eventually found this one, like I said, for $1.98. You're not going to find this one for $1.98 anymore. This one's kind of hard to find. Overall, not my favorite album, thrash metal album. It gets a little repetitive. They could have used a little more variation in the tempos, done a few more faster songs, but still, what's here, it's not a bad album. So, I can't remember what label this is even on. It's a small label. SBK Records. So there you go. Check them out. I'm sure if you put Dead On Shocker soundtrack into YouTube, you'll find a clip of these guys. So that's it. Alright, next up we have DAM. This is another band from the UK, from England. This is their second album. This is called Inside Out. This is a reissue. I do not have any of their stuff on the original pressings anymore. Had them on cassette, but I traded them off for something I wanted on CD that was worth more to me at the time. Yeah, this is like I said, a re-release of 2012 on Tribunal Records. Straightforward thrash metal, right along the lines of what I just recently showed with Detritus, Perpetual Defiance. These guys are this album slightly more technical than their first album, slightly more polished sounding, better musicianship than the first album. That first album just had that real kind of raw, youthful energy, kind of like the very first Megadeth or the first Metallica. You know, just had that. It was all about energy and speed and. And this album was a little more polished. Doesn't mean it wasn't thrash metal. Doesn't mean it wasn't raw and heavy. Just means that they improved their musicianship and their production. Really, really good album. Highly recommend checking out DAM Inside Out. All right, what do we got next here? Lots of stuff to show. All right, this is a band from LA. This is Detente, and this is Dawn Crosby's band, and this is the only band this particular band released, although she did release several albums with her band Fear of God. Fear of God were very different from Detente. Detente was straight up thrash metal. I mean, just balls to the wall, thrash metal with female vocals. You know, you tend to think female vocals with heavy metal, you kind of get that, think pop, you know, or pop rock or pop metal. Not even close. This is raw. This is heavy. This is what you want to hear when you hear thrash metal. I believe this album was released in like 1990 or 1991. This here is a Roadrunner reissue on CD. Great sound. What can I say? It's Detente. I think a lot of people know who they are. If you don't know who they are, check them out on YouTube. I play a clip, but I have a feeling I'd get a copyright strike for this one. So we're gonna go ahead and just tell you to check it out on YouTube. Detente. What's this one called? I forget the name of it. Recognize No Authority. Alright, where are we at here? Alright, this is some more Bay Area thrash, but this is a new wave of thrash metal band. This is Decapitator. Decapitator. And it sounds like a death metal band. It is not. It is thrash metal. Although the vocals are pretty raw and guttural compared to a lot of thrash metal bands from the 90s. The little hype sticker on the front says, Bay Area Metal Warriors Decapitator are the formidable new leaders of the thrash metal renaissance. Death Strike Commanders, Thrash Till Death for fans of Exodus, Megadeth, Slayer, Hex, Destruction, 3 Inches of Blood, and Exhumed. And speaking of Exhumed, one of the members of this band was actually in Exhumed. Be darned if I remember what his name was. I just remember that he's a member from this band in Exhumed as well. So, Raw, guttural, thrash metal. This is on Relapse Records. Year. I can't remember what year it is. I'll figure it out and put it below right here. So there you go, Decapitator. And this is before the storm before the calm. Yeah, that's it. The storm before the calm. All right, keeping it up. Lots to show. Don't want this to be a long video, so we're gonna show what's next. What's next? All right, this is some Texas thrash metal. They have 3 albums out. All 3 are awesome. I like this band a whole lot. This very first one is probably the hardest to find on CD or vinyl. This is Violent Termination by Devastation. Like I said, Texas thrash metal from Devastation. And I'm trying to remember for the life of me what year this came out. I'm thinking it came out around 1987, 86 maybe. I'm pretty sure it's 87, somewhere around that area. Awesome thrash metal. Kind of has a vibe of, it was like a raw or nastier Testament, if that makes sense. But these guys refined their sound with each new album. Second album was Signs of Life. This is a Century Media re-release. Came out, I believe, in the 90s when this came out. 1999 was when the re-release came out. And then their last album is just awesome. One of my all-time favorite thrash metal albums. One I'd love to have on vinyl, but I have it on CD. This is Devastation, Idolatry. Fantastic stuff. These guys have just found their sound, found their groove here. Every single thing they do is just in the pocket. A little bit like Testament as far as their sound, you know, very, very techy, but also very catchy and memorable, and really good vocals. You know, it's not thrash metal. The vocal styles run the gamut from, you know, clean like Joey Belladonna style vocals all the way to the most raw, almost death metal style vocals. And this one's a little more clean. Kind of falls in the middle, somewhere in the middle, which is right where I like it to be. You know, just great stuff. And this would have been on, I can't remember what the original label was for this. Was it Combat? I think it was on Combat Records originally. And then Century Media released it in 1999. Devastation, Idolatry. Let's see. This next band is from the Bay Area, formed in the early to mid 80s, by a bunch of teenagers who are cousins. This is Death Angel, the Ultra Violence. Very raw, very guttural album. Very good album, considering the drummer at the time was, what, 13 or 14 or somewhere in that area. These guys were young, but they put out some just biting music. Sometimes some of the best thrash metal is this style of thrash metal, when it's just raw and it's got that youthful energy. Again, like that Metallica Kill 'Em All, I mean, or the first Megadeth album, the first Vengeance Rising album. You know, just very raw, very heavy, but it's got that youthful aggression that you just can't be captured, you know, again, because youth is gone, right? Same thing you get here, Death Angel, the Ultra Violence. This was being their first album, and their second album, which is probably my favorite from them, Follow Through the Park. Refined their sound a little bit, added a little bit more memorable songwriting, a little more groove. I know a lot of thrashers swear by this one as being their best album, and it is a great album. You know, I don't fault anybody for saying that. My personal favorite is this one, and this is actually the first album I owned by them, so that could be another reason I like it so much. And then there is this live, somewhat of a bootleg, somewhat of an official release, I guess. This is Fall from Grace. Very bad sound. It sounds like a bootleg, but it's released on Enigma Records, so it's not really a bootleg, but that's basically what it sounds like. And then their third album, where they really refined their sound. This is Act 3. This is the last album the band released before breaking up, and some of the band members going off to form The Organization. But I love this album. There's some melodic stuff on here. Like a lot of bands in the mid-90s, they were exploring with sound, and I think they did a great job. I think there's just not a bad song on here. This is actually an original. No, this is not original. This is actually a Goldline pressing. I think I also have an original pressing of this on CD as well. Like I said, I have all the Death Angel stuff. So after and The Organization. After The Organization broke up, eventually Death Angel reformed, and they've released, what, 4 or 5 albums since reforming, which all those are really good as well, but really wanted to just show the earlier albums like this one, and my other favorite, Follow Through the Park. Great stuff. All right, getting down to the bottom here. Let's got two more to show. Two of my favorite bands. Let's see. We're gonna show this one first. I've loved this band since I discovered them in 1989. Walked into a store, was selling off a lot of my own music because I needed some. Well, that's a long story. Let's just say I was selling my music, but with some of the money, I bought some new stuff, and one of the ones I grabbed by the recommendation of the guy behind the counter was Deliverance. And this is the very first Deliverance album, self-titled. Fantastic speed metal, thrash metal, whatever you want to call it. Featuring Jimmy Brown on guitar, vocals, and Glenn Rogers on guitar. Of course, Glenn Rogers went on to be with Hyrax and among others. He's been in many, many, many bands. He was in Once Dead. He was in Heretic. He's been in tons of different bands, and he's just a metal machine. And Jimmy Brown, very melodic vocalist. It's just his voice is. People say he's David Bowie-esque, and I don't really hear that on here, but he's got that very clean David Bowie style of vocals, which is very different from a lot of thrash metal bands. Crunchy riffs. I love this. I just love the sound of this one. It was mixed by Brian. Yeah, what's his name? The guy from Metal Blade Records, whose name is totally escaping my mind right now. Let's see, I'll look it up. Bill and Toyer, thank you. Mixed by Bill and Toyer of Metal Blade fame, and released on the fledgling Intense label that has released some great stuff, including Vengeance Rising, Human Sacrifice that I talked about earlier. This one happens to be signed by Jimmy Brown and Glenn Rogers. Of course, it also features Brian, I don't know how to say his last name, I always screw it up, Carula, and drummer Chris Hyde. And drummer Chris Hyde passed away just a couple years ago now, I think. And next album they released, actually I have two different versions of that. Here's another one. This is actually a re-release on Retroactive Records. They changed the cover. Kind of like the newer cover better than the original one. This one's also signed by Brian and Jimmy Brown and Black Sharpie. And then their second album, which is just a metal monster. This is Weapons of Our Warfare. This is one of the original Intense releases. I also have it on vinyl, the original vinyl signed by the whole band, and the 2000 was a 14 Rox Records re-release on vinyl. Fantastic album. I think it was the title track, Weapons of Our Warfare, saw some spin time on MTV's Headbangers Ball back in the day. Gave the band a big charge. They toured on this out for quite a while. Saw them on this tour, and I saw them on the first tour too. Fantastic album. Just one of my, literally one of my all-time favorites. Difference between this lineup and the lineup of the first album, Glenn Rogers left to join Steel Vengeance, and they added Recon guitarist George Ochoa for this album. And he did the tour. Actually, when I saw Deliverance touring for the first album, George was actually playing guitar for him, so he actually joined the band right after the first album was released. So there you go, Weapons of Our Warfare. This actually had a different cover release too, which I didn't really like as much. I should have stuck with the original cover, it's much better. And then their third album was What a Joke. And again, this retains the speed and the thrash metal sound on here. They actually do a song, the J.I.G., which was actually off their very first demo on this album. I love this album too. So, there's a lot of silly, short joke songs, SOD-ish joke songs, but there's some real meat on here too. They do a Sabbath cover, After Forever. What a Joke. The title track is just a heavy riff monster. What else? It's the Beat with Roger Martinez of Vengeance Rising sharing guest vocals. Fantastic release. And there was the controversial re-release with the hamburger cover that the band hated. There was only ever 1,000 or less of these pressed, and the record company thought it was a good idea. They thought, what a joke. There's a song on there called Cheeseburger Maker Do, and had this short song, so they thought this was a fun way to, do the cover. Band hated it. Absolutely hated it. To be honest, I don't really care for it either. I think it's really horribly cheesy, but I think it's also cool in the fact that it's so collectible. So I still have my copy here. It's actually still sealed and has a guitar pick inside of it. So that's the third album from Deliverance, and they released a ton of albums after that. which I also have, but I can't really say that they were thrash or speed metal. With State of Execution, they kind of altered their sound a little bit, went from more of a groove-based sound, real heavy Mesa Boogie tones, but wasn't any longer thrash metal. So that's why I decided to only show those. This next band, one of my all-time favorites, also from California. This band is not from the Bay Area. This band is from straight up Los Angeles, where Metallica and Megadeth were originally from as well. This is, and Hyrax, of course. This is, like I said, one of my all-time favorite bands. This is Dark Angel. This is their first album, basically a demo, self-released. This is We Have Arrived. This one was released with 2 different covers. The original cover on vinyl was released on the French label Axe Killer, and the band released the album to Axe Killer, and they put out, and the money they made from that, they put out this album, this cover on vinyl independently. So there's 2 different versions of the album. Both of them were released at the same year, which was 1985, and this is actually obviously a re-release, which I've had for years and years and years and years. But here is the and this features original vocalist Don Dottie. Don went on, of course, well, Don didn't stick with the band for very long. They recorded the second album in 1986. This is their first official album. It was for Combat Records. And Darkness Descends was released in 1986 and did feature Don on vocals. Depending on whose story you believe, he either left the band, was kicked out of the band. Gene Hoglan says that Don was having a hard time with vocals live and in the studio, and they needed a more reliable vocalist. I've heard the same thing from other people as well. I assume that's what happened. I'm not an expert on why Don Dottie was kicked out of the band or why he left, so that's just a story I've read. Regardless, most people regard this as an absolute classic. Some people call it B-Rate Slayer. I don't believe that at all. I don't think so at all. Dark Angel has their own unique sound. Definitely Slayer inspired, but different, First of all, you have Gene Hoglan on drums, and Gene's just a beast on drums. And like I said, great album. A lot of people consider it their first official album, after the, I don't know if you can call this a full length or an EP or a demo, whatever. This is their first 2 albums with Don Dottie on vocals. After this album was released, Don was given his walking papers and came aboard Ron Reinhardt. And if you listen to the Ultimate Revenge soundtrack on VHS or CD or vinyl, the person singing the songs is vocalist Ron Reinhardt. And then Ron sang on this monster of a record. This is Leave Scars, 1989. And you can see there's Ron right there. And Gene hiding in the back in his sunglasses like usual. This album this is just one of my all-time favorite thrash metal albums. There's just nothing like this album. Okay, you've got, let's see here, Eric Meyer and Jim Durkin, guitar players who basically started the band on this thing. They were the dual guitar tag team on here. And unfortunately, this lineup didn't stay together, but the next album did, well, actually, they released an EP too, this live EP. Here's Live Scars, also with Ron. That's Ron singing right there. Also from 1989. This one happens to be autographed by Ron. Like I said, Ron's a good friend of mine. He's my brother. Yeah, this one's actually I believe Scars is autographed by Ron too. It's actually one of the first things I got autographed by him when my band went out to open up and do a show with him, and I had him sign this for me back in it had to be early 90s, 94, 95, somewhere in that area. Anyhow, the very last album, 1991. This is the last album they released before breaking up. This is Time Does Not Heal. This album just blows my mind constantly. Every time I hear it, there used to be like this hype sticker on it that said, I don't know, can't remember how many different riffs were on this album, but this album is technical, fast, brutal, thrash metal. I mean, this is just a beast of a record. I have a hard time picking which one I like better of the 2 of these. Both of them are fantastic. I'm of the school, I tend to, it's not just because he's my friend. Even before he was my friend, Ron was my favorite of the 2 vocalists. Don's great too, don't get me wrong, but Ron just had a unique sound, a unique style that fit well for Dark Angel. And obviously the band agreed with that, because when the band finally reformed in 2014 and did their reunion tour, their first reunion tour, where they traveled around the country and played all these different festivals, Ron was the guy behind the mic. So this album actually featured a new guitar player. Let's see if I can remember. I have to look because I can't remember what his name is. was ex-Viking guitar player Brett Erickson. Right there in the middle. But you still had Gene, Mike Gonzalez on bass, Ron on vocals, Eric Meyer on guitars. I don't know why Jim Durkin had left for this album, but regardless, this thing was just a monster, a beast. Everybody thought at the time that, you know, these guys were just going to be the next to minus, you know, to be as big as the Big Four. For whatever reason, didn't happen. The band broke up. This is the last thing they've released. But like I said, they're back together now. They've been playing some shows. Hopefully we'll get something new from them. So there you go. Thrash Metal A through Z, letter D. Some of my favorites. Please leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought of these bands. Let me know what you think I should have included that I didn't include. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Subscribe either way. And thank you so much for watching. God bless. Stay strong.